I think South Park actually made fun of this already, where they're talking to ChatGPT, and after they ask a question, it goes like the boop 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 boop, and it's like thinking. It's hard sometimes to have that natural sort of speaking thing. How do you get around this latency issue? What do you do to alleviate it even a little bit?
There are a few things that it depends on what kind of infrastructure you're using. Choice of model, O1 Mini, the GPT-4. There's also a nano model. Those ones are pretty great. I felt like I was having a conversation in real time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Web Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Ocel, VP of Innovation at This.Labs, joined by my very favorite co-host, Danny Thompson. Danny is the Director of Technology at This.Labs. Danny, how you doing?
I'm here. Excited for this one. I pretty much am very good terms and familiar and friendly with everybody here. So just had this guest even speak at our meetup, and he totally killed it, did a phenomenal job on stage. And so I think this is going to be a good episode.
Well, we'll invite our guests in just a minute. But first, Danny, at the time that people are going to be listening to this, I think your conference is going to be happening probably within weeks at this point. So how are you feeling? Are you stressed out?
Man, I'm tired, man. Every night, it's like midnight, 1 a.m. I'm working on stuff for the conference because I got to wait till you get off work and you're trying to get everything done. But it's shaping out real good. As of right now, we have 125 confirmed speakers. So it's going to be a very, very, very busy couple days. And the thing that I love the most is it's a tech conference where tickets start at $49, but virtual tickets are 100% free, and 100% of all ticket sales go to charity. So I'm loving every single bit of it right now.
We've never officially said it. We keep mentioning it, but we don't officially say it. So for people that are either in Dallas or have the capability to get to Dallas, can you let them know when it is and what it is?
September 25th and 26th is the Commit Your Code conference in Dallas. You can stream it online completely for free, or you have the option to donate to charity if you want to. We publish all our financial data publicly. That's the one thing that I believe in order to have the trust, it's got to be transparent. So there's no sneaks, there's no siphoning money out here. You know where your money's going to go. We donate to 3 charities. This year we donated to St. Jude Children's Hospital. We donated to Operation Kindness, which saves animals from kill shelters. And we donated to Free Code Camp. So we're covering all sectors of life, from animals to software developers to children that need help and they don't receive a hospital bill. And so I love all 3 missions, and I just want to support in the best ways that I can. Plus, last year we trended for 3 days on social media for our food. So at the very least, you're going to eat really good. But I can't imagine $49 pays for much these days as far as food goes. So the fact that our sponsors, they really align with the mission, because a lot say no. And so the fact that they align and they really get it and they want to just support the community, I'm head over heels about it. So super excited.
Awesome. Well, it's a good segue because I will be at the conference, and our guest today will also be at the conference. So let's welcome in our guest, Rishab Kumar. Rishab is a staff developer evangelist at Twilio. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Rob. And thank you, Danny, for having me here. Really excited about CYC. It's going to be my first time, but I've seen and heard good things about it from folks and the community members that I know online, and also huge FOMO from last year. So it's exciting.
I think one of the things I love about it is that it's a conference that's full of people who have communities of motivated and well-taught developers. So the networking is so effortless because everybody's going there having been well-trained how to network at events, and they will pull you in, and you can't not meet people there. Yeah. I think that was the right amount of negatives. You will meet people there. They will make sure it happens. So it's a fun conference to stop by at it if you are in the Dallas area.
I've taken it to a new level. I've done something. I wanted to solve every problem that I've ever had in a conference with this conference. And so, for example, water, coffee, all the good stuff free. This year we have a coffee cart that will pretty much make whatever you want, and it's completely for free, right? But the other thing that I've introduced, I even gave a little sneak preview of it on social media last night, is prompt cards. Every badge and every ticket gets a prompt card. And the idea is it kind of looks like a trading card game kind of style. We've put so much effort into the art and everything, but each card has a phrase that is your prompt for you to basically start conversations with. And the idea is after you have the conversation with somebody, you flip the card over like old school yearbooks, and you sign the card that you had that conversation with that person. So like to commemorate all the conversations and good feels that you had with great developers. My idea basically surrounds, if you have the want, need, or desire to have a network, it's almost impossible to leave this conference without one, unless that's a very conscious decision that you're making. And I wanted to just make it as easy as possible. And so the other thing that we have is the Morning Connect. So every single morning, 8 a.m., you come, you get your coffee, and you're randomly assigned to somebody for 10 minutes to have a random coffee chat with them. And the ultimate hope is obviously whoever you're assigned to, you don't know, so it's a brand new conversation every single time.
Awesome. Well, hey, speaking of prompts, that's going to be part of our topic for today. I think one of the things that we wanted to talk to Rishab about specifically is about this sort of future of voice and AI, or the present, really, of voice and AI. You know, it's funny because one of the things that I experience a lot is that we have an Alexa device in our house. We've had one for forever, and my son has grown up with this thing, so he uses it all the time. And one of the things that I have realized lately is the degree to which, if you still are rocking an Alexa as your or a similar device, right, a Google Home or whatever, as your primary device, to the best of my knowledge, they have not yet integrated LLMs directly into the way that they behave, although that's coming. But like your understanding of what software and technology can do with respect to voice is just seemingly behind. So Rishab, to start us off, like, can you let us know where we are right now when it comes to, you know, voice interactions with AI?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to also go back into time or like context wise, because we have had voice assistants like, you know, as you said, Alexa, Siri, Google has theirs in their smartphones, but they were usually to get information that's, you know, easily searchable, or you can get information by different mediums. So you could also like go and do a Google search. But I think the agentic side of it started when, you know, things like Alexa could turn off lights or turn on lights or play, you know, your Spotify playlist. And that's when you started seeing the agentic side of it. But even then, it was not so conversational. I feel like it was very, you know, one-sided. It'll be like, hey, Alexa, you know, what's the weather today? And it would grab that information and tell it back without any conversational part of it. Now, I think it's very more natural. We saw that with the OpenAI demo that they did with their mobile app where you can now talk to AI. And I honestly use it. I want to say weekly, every once or twice, where I'm just, instead of prompting, like putting in the text in the chat, I'm just talking to it. And which is way more, I feel like, easier to do than, you know, typing a huge task list or thing that I'm going to accomplish, to just tell my thoughts. It's so easy because, you know, it's more natural. We as humans have been interacting like that with each other. I am also kind of person who would have a quick Slack huddle than, you know, sending a message and then a back and forth, you know, text messages are sometimes too much because you have to type a lot. It's way more easier to, you know, express your thoughts when you're talking, because there are nuances, there are cues. As if you're seeing this or watching this and not listening, you can see my hands move. You know, there's all this interactivity, I feel like, that gets missed out on text. And I think seeing that demo, like I'm trying to think what I was thinking back then when I saw that OpenAI demo, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is what is gonna take us. I'm also, you know, a huge fan of Marvel. I grew up watching Iron Man. I'm like, this is what's gonna take us closer to having our own Jarvis someday. But yeah, there are a few other projects that really fascinated me, and I think we are very much closer to like that science fiction kind of AI. Is, I don't know if you have tried like the Gemini Pro, but the AI Studio, where you can now show it your screen and show it your camera, and it can see and get the context of not only what you're talking about, but also what you're trying to do. So let's say, you're writing a SQL statement, or let's say you're doing something in Excel. Like I hate Excel. I hate VLOOKUPs. And I tried it. It's pretty good. Like I'm like, hey, I'm trying to, sort this column, and I'm talking to it while sharing my screen, and it gives you instructions on what to do. So I think that's why I feel like voice it's getting there, but I think it'll be the number one kind of medium how we interact with it, whether it's through our phones or our laptops or PCs, with AI.
Talk a little bit more about how you actually interface with it. So when you work with voice, what are some of the tips you have? What are some of the tricks that you use when it comes to structuring your voice prompt, right? Because we've done all sorts of prompt engineering with text and people have learned all sorts of tricks. Do those carry over to voice, or are there new tricks that people should know?
That's a really good question. I've been thinking about that because I've ran into issues where, like this podcast or any of the other conversations, I go down a rabbit hole. And sometimes when you can't like clearly, I think that's also, at least for me, is one of the challenging parts right now is sometimes I talk for too long and it's not going to be structured as well as it could have been if it was a text prompt to AI, right? I find it's pretty good at picking up like adding punctuations and stuff, but it's not good at like, oh, like how would you specify like a JSON structure if you want that as the output? How would you specify like a markdown kind of or a bullet point list, right? You can sometimes it detects it pretty good. You can be like, oh, here are 4 bullet points, and you say first, second, third, and it picks that up. At least that's the experience that I've had with OpenAI and their voice thing. But it is tricky. It is tricky in the sense that you cannot like it has to evolve from the lessons we have had for prompt engineering with text. I think there's some evolution of it that needs to happen for voice. I'm not sure. I'm not the correct person. Like I have thoughts, but I don't think I can like give you like a definitive answer of this is where we are headed. But I think when I show these tools to like my parents or my brother or my sibling who is not in tech, once they started using the voice feature on the OpenAI app, I've not seen them typing. So like, I know we as people in tech use AI for a lot of other things. So, whether it's, vibe coding or coding, whether it's, I use it now to generate slides as well. There are some amazing tools out there and we can dive into that later. But I feel like the general purpose for generic audience, it's usually around like, hey, write me an essay or whatever they're trying to do with like not minimal thinking, but very less effort to things like coding, I feel like. And the interaction there usually, once you show them, happens through voice. So there's definitely some improvements that need to be made for it to be adopted across different like tasks. For now, it's pretty good, and that's why like I obviously am a bit biased, but I work at Twilio. We have had APIs for voice, SMS, and messaging and email, and even WhatsApp. So very early on, when ChatGPT announced their APIs, the first thing that I prototyped was how you can interact through SMS or WhatsApp instead of using the application, just a wrapper. And you get into the issue where, so SMS has limits, right? If the AI generated a very big response, you would get it in chunks. So you had to wait. Whereas now we have Conversation Relay, which is like an adapter and it can talk about it. But basically, you can talk to AI, and it doesn't even have to be like a voice model. It can be a text model that you're talking to, which is, I feel like it's pretty good. It's pretty good because when you think about applications, there's that, like, you need to install a native application. There's that hindrance. Whereas with Conversation Relay, if you want adoption, numbers are so old, like people still call. I would like to think so. I know the newer generation prefers text over calling, but it works on that already existing channel that's used by like millions of people. But you're bringing this evolution, like AI, into that existing channel.
We'll be back to the episode in a second, but first I'd like to acknowledge the team behind the channel, This.Labs. We're seeing 3x to 5x productivity improvements with our teams and clients using tools like Cursor, Claude Code, and GitHub Copilot. We help teams adopt these technologies and get max value out of them through strategic partnerships, trainings, and other software engineering services. Check us out at ai.this.co. Thanks, now back to the video.
I've been messing a lot with conversational AI. I, like many others, definitely see it as the future of a lot of agentic use. I remember I was at AI Engineer even, and I was speaking with someone who is an AI researcher at, I won't plug them, but like it was a very big organization, household name, et cetera, et cetera. This individual said something that really opened my eyes towards a lot of the use cases that I don't even think, maybe being in tech, it gives you one perspective that sometimes you ignore the other. And this individual often works as a scientist in labs doing things, additionally outside of just AI specific items. And in their research, that the example that they gave was, maybe I have chemicals in my hands and I'm doing something within the lab itself. I don't have time to take off my gloves, put down the chemicals, secure everything, then type on a computer. But now if I'm speaking to it, this is the way that I'm going to interact with it going forward. Why wouldn't I tell it the measurements of something and have it jotted down and visually look to make sure it got it right? Or have it respond back to me whatever that measurement was to confirm that it was the accurate measurement that I needed it to log or something along those lines. And it basically got me realizing conversational AI and voice AI will be the new UI for a lot of agentic interactions. What does that theoretically look like to you? What does that experience even look like to you? What are some things that you've noticed that, like, dang, I wish this was better? Or we're working on something now that's given me the idea for that could be the next iteration of a better use case. What are some of those things for you?
So for me, as touching a bit on that Jarvis type goal of us, as, I don't want to say nerds, but like geeks, I guess. I think contextually aware conversational intelligence, whatever that looks like in the next 5 years, for me, it would be, and I have seen very cool demos from robotics side of things as well, where you're having like a human natural conversation with robots now that are performing certain tasks for you. I think that would be like the ideal future that I want to see us go into, because what do I use AI right now majority for? And it's to get it to do things that I was spending a lot of time at. So things like, even with like GitHub Copilot, Claude Code, or any of these, AI coding agents. And I love how GitHub called it Copilot, because to be honest, I don't trust AI generated code 100% yet. I don't think we are there yet. You always need like human in the loop. So one tip from this conversation would be, if you generate, or if you have AI generated code, please review it before you send in that pull request, or send it to your colleagues or your friends to try it out. But even with those like native coding agents or tools, it is like the term like co-pilot or co-agent, right? It's there to help me, but it's not 100% working on its own. I still have to prompt it. I still have to tell it what issue or what feature I'm working on, and how it should think about it, right? I think voice AI I feel like it's moving us towards like always available, contextually aware assistants that understand not just what we are saying, but like maybe they also have cameras in the future where they can like look at what we are trying to do. So an example would be you have your phone and it's able, and I've seen some demos around this as well. You're talking to it when you're building your IKEA furniture. You don't have to go through the manual again. Like it tells you if you have done something wrong. It tells you how to, build this bed together, as if you had some like handyman with you. There's a plumbing problem in your kitchen under the sink. It knows, it can see what the problem is. It can search the web, and it can talk to you as a human. So I see that would be really, like that's one of the avenues I think this will grow into. And it doesn't matter like if it's through an app or if it's through like some other medium, but that natural conversation-based interaction is, I think, where the most value is going to be. Like, I don't want to go back to my desk or don't want to type what my plumbing problem is, right? Like, it's hard for me to explain that because I'm not a plumber. But if I can use my device camera and can talk about it, I'm like, hey, this is what it looks like, and this is where it's leaking. So that's what I think. And I think that kind of answers your question. But so similar principle to like Cloud Code and like all these coding agents, but in like real life scenarios, like fixing my car. If Toyota or any of these automobile companies want to build one AI agent that can help you identify what the problem is in your car based on the codes it's showing, like you can just pull up your phone, show it like, oh, this is the error it's showing on my dashboard. I can also walk through, show my engine, because that's another concern. Like I feel like I know a bit about cars, and I feel like sometimes, you get ripped off on those repairs and stuff. So I think AI will make us, I don't want to say more intelligent, but when it comes to information and knowledge, we'll be more reliant on them because they have that contextual and training of vast majority of concepts.
Yeah, it's made me slightly nervous about things. I've noticed how people have used it. For example, with the latest ChatGPT iteration, it took away a lot of the personability of the models to make it feel more of a tool instead of a best friend, and people were losing their minds. And it made me fearful in a certain degree of how accepting of the information people were, even if it was incorrect. Which almost feels like there's a responsibility to not necessarily be the best way to deliver it, but the most accurate way to deliver it. And I feel like we're stepping away from that more and more. But it also made me realize with some of the agentic tools, we're starting to make things AI focused that I don't necessarily know if it needs to be. And like I've seen more effort go into certain areas that has made me question certain strategies. And I don't even know if you have the answer to this, but like what you said led me to believe or think about it. Like we're putting so much AI emphasis on terminal use cases and usages. And I know there are people that use a lot of CLI tools heavily, but it feels like we're almost fixing something that didn't necessarily need to be super fixed, where it's like when you're doing in the IDE, this makes a lot of sense. And I know there are people that use Vim, for example, but those individuals, do they really need AI capabilities? Like, I feel like if you're making the choice to utilize them, it's coming from a very, very focused point. And so the CLI tools that are getting it, I don't necessarily know if those are the tools that are the right answer to that problem. If anything, there are tools that I do like, by the way. Like, two specifically that come to mind are like Warp and Claude Code, that I genuinely am massive fans of in the CLI space. But even then, when I look at them, I don't see them replacing the experience of Vim, for example. It's just a different, almost IDE, but it's not an IDE. So it's like, why are these some of the considerations that we're making? Like, if Claude Code went into an IDE instead, they'd still be killing it. So why do we see this being the case? Now, my first instinct was because we want to start grabbing more people that are maybe less IDE focused, but more CLI focused, like cloud engineers or DevOps. But I still don't know why that's the angle that we're going. And then when I think of conversational AI as a whole, I'm like, well, we're stepping even further away from that. So where is the intersection?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you think about it, if the goal for these enterprise companies was to have, and I think deep down that is the goal for them, is to have the most number of users, the best experience that the users have, and to retain those users. I was at a time where I was paying for, I want to say, 4 to 5 AI subscriptions. I have brought it down to 2 now because I know what
we need to talk, man. I have
Don't tell the investors. Don't tell the investors.
And I'm on a personal note, I'm happy to share like what those 2 are, but it is very interesting that for WAP, I think, Danny, it makes sense because they're a terminal application. Like they have a terminal app. For Cloud Code, it was very, and I thought about it, but then you saw the adoption because as a tool, it was killing it when it came out. It did a pretty good job. And then you had like a lot of guides on how it can be different engineers. Like you can have Cloud.md. One of them is like, oh, you're a DevOps engineer. One of them is like, oh, you're a security engineer, and things like that. You're giving it a different kind of personality based off what task you want to perform. And the only thing was how you interact with this is through a terminal, a CLI app. Which was very interesting because before that we saw IDE-based agents, like GitHub Copilot was pretty popular, and then there were a few like open source ones. You had Cursor, a completely like different IDE wrapped around VS Code, but it was still like in the IDE itself. Like you could still see your project, you could still see the code files. Now that you brought that up, I feel like, yes, there is kind of a sense of like how we can do this responsibly, specifically for general use cases with, like you said about ChatGPT 5, now it has taken away that personalization part out. And I know a lot of people were using it as, they consider it as a friend, like, because it knew the personality traits of you. Like I've also seen people do therapy with it, which is again like questionable how AI tools are being used, because now OpenAI has all this context of all the conversations you have had, and how healthy it is to have therapy from an AI who can be wrong, or like factually wrong certain times. So I do see that being an issue, specifically for journal use cases. And you brought up a great point. I don't have the answer, but I do think about that. I would say that's why the niche, even though like OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, Google, DeepMind would have the biggest shares, in the space, there's a reason why tools like, GitHub Copilot, even though it uses other models, right? Cursor doesn't have their own AI model. It's using like all these other enterprise models. So like very native niche products, AI products are gonna exist, or tools are gonna exist that have fine-tuned these existing models into something very niche. Whether it's through, having like very strict rules in their code, whatever they have built with the API, whether it's through function calling and things like that. But it is achievable to a certain extent. Like if you use GPT, like I tested or experimented with GPT-5 in VS Code through GitHub Copilot, and I liked it. I used it through V0 from Vercel, and it's amazing at doing like front-end tasks. But if you do the same in OpenAI's ChatGPT, like if you go to chatgpt.com and give it a front-end task to build something, it's not as good as V0, even though the models being used are the same. So I think that's where the bridging of things will need to happen is, as I said, like companies like, I don't know, BMW, Toyota, or Hyundai, or any of these automobile companies partnering with, OpenAI or Gemini to build like a responsible, reliable AI tool for cars, maybe. And then similarly, you can apply that to like different industries.
Cool. Let's like get down into the nitty gritty a bit. And let's talk about like how you do this. Maybe some people know that the agent of choice, ChatGPT has a voice interface, for example. And I know you've already sort of hinted at kind of what Twilio does. So explain a little bit about how, like, what tools you primarily use to interface with voice and how people should understand what the different features are or how to distinguish between the quality of different voice interaction tools.
Definitely. So I know that there's advancements, and like it's the most fast-paced evolution that I've seen in tech, having been, we have seen that with cloud. We saw, if you go back in 2000s, we saw that with, or even 90s, we saw with internet, and then later how web was like the biggest platform that people were spending their time on. But if you look at the pace of like advancement, and that's one of the things that's so hard to do in the AI space is it's changing every day. I feel like voice stuff, there are two ways, or at least for now, there are kind of two ways to do it. Either you have a web app or any kind of application that uses WebRTC to communicate to any of the AI APIs, right? If you're building a tool for yourself. Now, that is doable. It works. You also now have, earlier you have to do like you had to handle a lot of the complexity of like speech to text and then text to speech, because AI responses were in text and they understood text as the prompt. So if a person speaks, you need to do that STT or speech to text, send it to the AI. AI gives a response which is in text. So you had to do text to speech. And that's why companies like, I feel like 11 Labs are doing a great job. So you have like natural sounding voices, even though if the text response from the AI might sound a bit robotic, which we saw in the previous iteration of chatbots, or if you have talked to like any of the automated systems on when you call a 1-800 number or helpline, right? And I think that's where it's going to change. But with conversation relay, if I know there are companies or these AI companies that are working on like voice models, so you don't even have to deal with the speech to text, text to speech stuff. But conversation relay, handles all of that. So it's like an adapter that we built that handles speech to text and text to speech. But also we have partnered with 11 Labs and other big partners from like Google and Amazon to support custom voices. So it's just an API call that you do. You need a WebSocket server because that's how we connect the AI to the live like voice channel. But yeah, basically we handle all of that. You just need to bring your LLM. So it can be OpenAI, it can be Gemini, it can be Anthropic, it can be AWS Bedrock, it could be your own like fine-tuned models. You hook it up to this conversation relay adapter. It is code heavy. So like if you, depending on what your choice of programming language is, you can bring it, hook it up to the API, and we handle the rest. We have already, because Twilio already has a huge global infrastructure of like the voice connectivity. So you get to have that. You can buy numbers in any of the countries you would like to make this available, your tool available over voice. Again, you have to go through compliance and stuff depending on which country it is. It's also like HIPAA eligible framework if you're dealing with, healthcare stuff. So all of that is kind of under this umbrella now where you can integrate AI into it. The coolest part that I love is the interruption handling. So like, let's say, as we know, AI responses sometimes can be lengthy. And let's say it's generating and that's being relayed to you over the voice call and you start talking in between. It interrupts it. Like we handle the interruption. We have a proprietary orchestration algorithm that handles that. But yeah, that's kind of a bit about it.
How do you deal with so one of the biggest problems, right, is like latency. I think South Park actually made fun of this already this season, where they're talking to ChatGPT and after they ask a question, it goes like the boop 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 boop, and it's like thinking, right? And I think this is common for anybody that's ever interacted voice wise with the AI. Is it's hard sometimes to have that natural sort of speaking thing, and for some people that can be very disruptive, especially if you're using it to brainstorm or you're really iterating and tightly with something. So what do you guys do, and how do you get around this latency issue? What do you do to alleviate it even a little bit?
Yeah, so we specifically, I can talk about like there are a few things that it depends on. Like one of them being what kind of like infrastructure you're using, because you need that WebSocket server. So like there are too many dependencies of how you can reduce the latency, or if you're seeing latency in the first place. The second one being the choice of model, right? So like how long did it take for the AI to send you back a response? My experimentation with also like, because you can set like max tokens and things like that. Like the O1 mini, the GPT-4o mini, there's also a nano model. Those ones are like pretty great. Like I felt like I was having a conversation in real time. If someone is interested, I do have a cool demo on my YouTube channel, and none of the parts are edited out in that video. And you can see it for yourself. All of that is running locally, so I have I would say like a good machine. And yeah, like it depends on a lot of things. But our engineering team has, partnered with OpenAI so that we can make sure like how the responses can be like low latency. There's also now the real-time API from OpenAI. I think that helps as well. But that's a bit about when you're thinking about latency. Few of the dependencies that you can look at if you're trying to improve. Like for the Gemini example, I used the Flash model, and it was like very good because how fast it generates the response.
So Rishab, this is really cool. I mean, I didn't say this earlier in the podcast, but I've got a neighbor who just swears by these tools. He takes his dog on long walks. This is how he's losing weight. He just takes his dog on long walks, and he takes ChatGPT with him, and he's just sitting there iterating with it, planning out what he wants to do, writing blog posts or content, things like that. I agree with you. I think people are underutilizing this technology. So I hope people, look into what you guys got there at Twilio. I hope people are playing with this. But for people that maybe go and they start experimenting and they want to let you know how it went, or maybe come back for a couple more tips, can you let people know where they can find you online if they want to connect with you?
For sure. So if you have any questions or you build something cool and we're like, how can I improve it? I'm open for having a quick chat. You can find me on Rishab in Cloud on X or Twitter, whatever you call it these days. I'm also available on LinkedIn at Rishab Kumar 7 if you're going to the direct link. Also, if you want to look at demos and sample repositories, you can find me on GitHub as well at Rishab Kumar 7, and I have some cool examples that you can try it out.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that's going to be it for us today. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Modern Web Podcast. Of course, thanks to our guest, Rishab. As always, we say the conversation does not stop here. We'll put all those links you just heard down in the show notes so you don't have to memorize them or rewind to write them all down. But check out Rishab online. As for me, you can find me online at RoboCell. As for Dan, you can find him online at DThompsonDev. For the podcast, you can find us online at moderndotweb.com or on Twitter at modern.web. As we close out, we'd just like to thank today's sponsor, This.Labs, one last time, who would like me to remind you that This. Is dedicated to guiding companies through their modernization and AI transformation journeys. This.Labs is a tech consultancy that specializes in amplifying your technical capabilities, whether it's expanding your dev team with seasoned professionals or streamlining your project's journey from ideation to deployment. We work with clients like Google, Microsoft, PayPal, and more. Check us out at this.co. One more time, that's THISDOT.co. See you all next time.